Opening up a mailbag, we'll talk about playoff stress and concerns, Derrick White's potential contract, Robert Williams, a potential return, and duck boats all right now on the Locked On Celtics podcast.
Thanks to Blockbuster Brand, it's holiday season, drop Drew in the mix. And 3 from KP, no we not on the Knicks. Flushing competition like Al on Giannis. Juice and Big Deuce, still Beantown's finest. Banner 18 going up in the rafters. Watch the C's game in locked on after. Karalis on the breakdown, clutch like a tip from D. White on the breakdown. John on the mic, documenting domination. Matter pen a back bay, it's all C's nation. Rain and Jace, how it started, raising banners, how we finish. Locked on Celtics pod, home of the winners. Peace.
Right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day, and I got you covered every single day. I don't know if I got enough volume on my mic, but now I think I do. With a free, fresh podcast dropped directly to your device. When I'm switching between mics, some mics take a little bit more, some mics don't need as much. I hope you could have heard me there at the top of the key. Maybe not. Maybe at the top of the show, it's better that you didn't hear me. Hey, I'm John Karalis. Used to play a long time ago. Now I'm covering the Celtics for Boston Sports Journal. I'm a beat writer. I'm there every day. On Tuesday, we'll be talking to Brad Stevens, so I'll be sharing some of what Brad Stevens had to say on the podcast. That'll be part of the show. And then we're just going to dive into playoff mode the rest of the week. So it's hopefully you're subscribing wherever you get your podcast. Watch the show on YouTube. Get into the comments section. Today, the show is brought to you by Monopoly Go. You know, I have a competitive side, and that competitive side is a big fan of Monopoly Go, the mobile hit twist on the classic Monopoly. So join your friends, download Monopoly Go now for free on the Apple Store, the Apple App Store, or Google Play. It's Mailbag Day here on Locked On Celtics. Later on, we'll talk about duck boats. Will I ride one? We'll see. Robert Williams, could he come back? Derrick White's contract. Let's get into playoff stuff at first here. I also want to, before I'm recording this before the main Celtics play their championship game. Good luck to them against the OKC Blue. I still think it would be really fun if it's Boston, Maine beats OKC in the G League championship. Celtics beat OKC for the NBA championship. That'd be kind of a fun storyline. It's possible. But let's get into this playoff stress from Paolo, who asks, hey, John, any suggestions on how to manage playoff stress? Well, look, I know people tend to get a little worked up, right? You get a little caught up in the moment. And I'll be honest with you, my level of stress, it changed because of the job that I do. But I think the thing to understand is, the number one thing is, no matter what happens, it's going to be okay. It's going to be fine no matter what. So just sit back, enjoy the process, the moment, just sit back, just enjoy, soak it all in, because there's something there in every moment that you should enjoy. Even if it's in a loss, there should be a feeling of, hey, look, these guys gave me 8 months of a lot of fun. And I've been on record here as saying, I expect the Celtics to win a championship. I expect them to win a championship. This isn't like the last 2 years or so where I'm like, I think the Celtics can win a championship. This year, I expect them to win a championship. But I'm not saying that it's a guarantee, though. It's possible that they won't. There are other teams that are involved. Maybe they don't get to the finals. Maybe they get to the finals and they lose. Either way, it doesn't negate what they did. So just always kind of keep in the back of your head, this has been a good season, and just sit back and enjoy the process, the moments, and, a drink or something else to help you calm down might not be a bad thing either. But that's how I handle the stress of things. It just it's not the end of the world, right? It's not the end of the world. So just enjoy what's happening, enjoy the moment, and you won't miss Derrick White's put back, because you're like screaming at Marcus Smart or whatever happens. So Eric says, I'm concerned about the beginning of these playoffs. Eric's question here is kind of emblematic of a lot of questions that came in prior to the last couple of games. The ones where the starters played and kind of relaxed and they lost a couple of games in a row. A lot of questions came in, and this one kind of works for all of them. It's Eric's, but there are a lot of people who said, I'm concerned about the beginning of the playoffs, given how the Celtics have been playing. They seem lazy and not focused. Are you concerned that they don't come out with focus, especially against teams like Miami or Philly? I'm concerned for an upset, he says. Now, the one thing that we shouldn't be concerned about is a first-round upset. These Celtics, no matter what you think, they haven't been upset in the first round. They haven't gotten maybe as far as you think they should, but they have never been upset in the first round. So you have that in mind. I'm not concerned. I don't think that you can't live and die by the results of each game as they happen. Like I've been saying all season long, each game is not a referendum on how the team is going to do moving forward. Each game's its own thing. And the bigger picture, the bigger trends, that's what's going to be indicative of what we can expect. And the Celtics have had a very professional, focused season, minus a couple of games where seeding was determined and they're like, not entirely their best effort, but they just, what do you want? Like, honestly, what do you want from them? They weren't going to try 100% because they weren't trying to get hurt. They're just trying to get through the last few games that meant nothing. And you know what? If you want a little bit of spin, this is admittedly a little bit of spin, but I'll put it this way. You didn't have Jayson or Jaylen or any of those guys trying to go super ISO and put up big numbers, right, to pad stats and make a big case for all NBA. They didn't do any of that stuff. It wasn't like they stopped trying and they were like, you know what, I'm just going to go for 30 and just put up a couple of 30 spots and hopefully that's front of them. But more than the win, more than the loss, they didn't even do that. They sacrificed their own numbers. They didn't even try for their own numbers. So that, I think, it's not laziness. It's not unfocused. They were just like, we're done. We're done with the regular season. We're not going to go and put ourselves in a position to get hurt. We're just going to kind of get through. We're going to run up and down. Yeah, they tried in spots, but that's all it was. So don't worry about that. Let's see how they come out in the playoffs. I have a feeling that in the first couple of games, they'll come out and they'll play strong, and people will go, oh, okay. Okay, never mind. So relax. Kenny asks, is O'Shea going to play in the playoffs? I feel the Celtics need to bring in some energy, like him crashing the glass occasionally. Well, we have to understand that this is going to be a very short rotation. And Tom Westerholm and I, a couple of weeks ago, broke down the numbers. The numbers are very simple. If everybody gets their normal playoff minutes, which basically Jaylen, Jayson, Derrick White get 40 minutes or so, Holiday, Porzingis get 35, Al Horford gets about 30 to 35. That leaves about 20 minutes left for a seventh player. And that could be 10 minutes for one and 10 minutes for a different one. Or maybe, depending on how the game goes, it could be 30 minutes because they have the game well in hand and they don't need to play Tatum or Brown 40 minutes. So just keep that in mind when you get into the playoffs. O'Shea, probably not going to play. If he does, it's situational, right? And maybe he does. Maybe there is a need for energy. I would be shocked. I would be shocked if there's a game where the Celtics are completely flat and don't have it. And it's not impossible. Even in the playoffs, it's not impossible, but I would be surprised if this team is in that mode. You know, I'm sorry. I'm looking at my meters here, and I swear that I think it's weird. I'm sorry if things are not, my audio is a little off. I'm going to try to normalize it as best I can after the fact, but if I'm having audio issues, I apologize. So I think I'm okay, but I look down at my meters. It's tough when you're producing a show while you're doing it. So I just want to apologize for that. But my final word is it's situationally O'Shea, even guys like Peyton Pritchard, Sam Hauser, those guys are going to be like drastically reduced. Luke Cornett, they're going to be drastically reduced. So just keep that in mind. Maybe in the early rounds, it won't be the case, and we'll see a more normal rotation. If the Celtics can build up a big lead and they can kind of get away, you can steal a couple of minutes on the bench for Tatum and Brown here or there, so you can save their big minutes for second, third rounds and the finals. But that's where I feel like it's just going to be kind of a mix. Come back, we'll talk about the best possible path, worst possible path, and questions about Derrick White's contract. That's all coming up in just a minute. Today's show is brought to you by BetterHelp. BetterHelp is therapy all done online, designed to be convenient, flexible, suited to your schedule. And those are the big things that help you get through the obstacles of therapy, right? Because the number one obstacle is finding somebody, and number two, it's sticking with somebody because maybe you don't click right away. And when you're not finding somebody in your area, it can be difficult. That's why BetterHelp is a great way to get started with therapy. Whether you want to just get something off your chest, whether it's big or small or something more deep rooted, whatever it is, I've benefited from therapy myself. I think BetterHelp can be a great way to start. You can do it all online. It's like I said, flexible. And if you use the code LOCKEDONNBA, BetterHelp.com/LOCKEDONNBA, you'll get 10% off your first month. BetterHelp, HELP.com/LOCKEDONNBA. Find a therapist, a licensed therapist. If you don't like that therapist, switch, no charge. It's at BetterHelp.com/LOCKEDONNBA. It's a great way to get started. Thank you for making Locked On Celtics your first listen every day. Go check out Locked On Sports today. They have got the NFL, Locked On NFL mock draft live on April 17th at 7 p.m. Eastern time, streaming on Locked On Sports today, the 24/7 streaming channel, or the Amazon Fire TV channels app. Find the ultimate 6-episode series April 17th at 7 o'clock Eastern to hear who the local Locked On experts are picking for any NFL franchise, with live reactions from local college football experts and even the fantasy football angle. Locked On NFL mock draft, April 17th at 7 Eastern, streaming live on Locked On Sports today, 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. Let's get back to the mailbag here. Carl says, what's the worst, hardest possible path to winning an NBA championship this postseason? I think the question came in before we knew the potential opponents, but I think now we can answer that question with some certainty. I think the hardest possible one, I still think it's the Sixers, even though the Celtics have the Sixers number, because Joel Embiid's the best player they're going to face. It's the Sixers. I'm going to say the Cavs because of their experience. Although Cavs and Orlando, either one is going to be tough. They're both big physical teams. So, but I'll say the Cavs, and then I'll still say Milwaukee in the conference finals. Just their experience. It's still going to be a tough one. And Giannis, I assume, is going to be healthy at that point. So if they get to that point, that would be the toughest road to the finals. And then Denver in the finals. That would be the hardest road to a championship. So Philly, Cleveland, Milwaukee, Denver. Also, side note, would not be my favorite path city-wise because I don't want to go to Cleveland and Milwaukee in back-to-back stops. Sorry, people who live in Cleveland and Milwaukee. I'd much rather go. I mean, Orlando's not bad, though. I'd rather go to the nice weather. That's kind of a toss-up. I'd rather go to New York for conference finals. Just, I used to live in New York. I like New York. But, hey, whatever it is, whatever the path is, the path is. Johnny B asks, hey, John, how come Tatum never came off the bench this season? Didn't he promise D. White that he'd do that at least once? Hey, he did. You know what Tatum also promised? Remember when he promised to buy Jaylen Brown a car because he broke his face? I don't think he lived up to that promise either. Is Jayson Tatum a dirty liar? Dun, dun, dun. Is this going to tear apart the locker room? Dun, dun, dun. Yeah, I don't know. He was never coming off the bench. But yes, he did promise that. Maybe I'll ask him about it. Like, hey, didn't you say you were going to come off the bench at least once? And he didn't. Perfect opportunity. He could have done it in one of these last two games. Checked in, play 2 minutes, check back out, be done. Danny asks, hey, with the Drew signing for 4 years, it brings up the question, what about Derrick White? Why were everyone else's contracts able to be completed except Derrick White? What's the bigger picture here? I might have explained this before, but the bigger picture is that it makes more sense for him to go into free agency, very much like the Jaylen Brown situation, where once he became a free agent, they signed him to the 35% Supermax versus an extension that would have been significantly less. For Derrick White, the extension puts him in the $27 million. Like, it's the most that he can get is $27 million to start. If he wants the Drew Holiday contract, if he said, I will just take the Holiday contract, the exact carbon copy, you can't do that unless he goes into free agency. That's the rules. That's just the collective bargaining agreement. So that's why Derrick White didn't get extended, because he can make more money. If he wants to roll a dice, he can say, look, if they say 27's on the table, okay, great. I'm going to roll the dice here. I'm going to see if I can go and earn a little bit more. And with the open market, who knows what team might step up. The Celtics have bird rights, so they can sign him. It doesn't matter. It's not like a pool of money that they don't have. They can sign him to whatever. And if he says, you know what? I only had a $27 million season. And the worst case scenario is that you have a $27 million season. That contract's there. You just take that. Even if it's a little bit less, then, hey, I don't think it's going to be less, just knowing his work ethic and his ability. So go into free agency and give it a shot. Unless he's just perfectly comfortable taking the $27 million, in which case after the season they can get that done. But that's the biggest reason why that didn't get done. Eric says, hey, I've observed that this Celtics team did not take many charges anymore. At least not as much as the past years. Is this the game plan? Interesting. I looked at this and, the things that you kind of forget, you realize like, they didn't take as many charges. You're right. You get caught up in what is happening, which is blocking a lot of shots. The Celtics contested a ton of shots. They didn't foul much. That's the game plan. The game plan is to contest without fouling. So the charges, they took 47 offensive. They drew 47 offensive fouls last season. This season they drew 16. Right. Last year, Derrick White took 13. This year, he took 7. Holiday took 6. But the biggest difference, and I think this is just a stylistic thing, Blake Griffin and Marcus Smart drew 26 offensive fouls, and they're not on the team. So those guys were replaced by guys who are more contesting shots, like Porzingis contests shots. He's not taking charges. Holiday can take charges, but he's not taking many. He's trying to get in there and be disruptive and take steals. White is the guy who used to take a bunch of charges, and his basically got cut almost in half. So, but he ended up blocking a ton more shots. So it is a stylistic change. It's just more, this is what the defense, this is what the defensive players are more like. So that's what they did. They just they're Smart got into position, and like he's the guy who drew like the crazy ones. Blake Griffin wasn't blocking as many shots, so he had to draw fouls. These guys don't have to, and that's why. All right, we'll come back. We'll talk about Neemias Queta's contract and how that impacts the Rest of the roster, Robert Williams. Is he going to get moved back to Boston? Jeff Van Gundy and duck boats. That's all next. Today's show is brought to you by Monopoly Go. We've all been there, either as a player or as a fan. It's halftime, and the scoreboard's not looking good. You're feeling low. Not sure you or your team can pull out a win. That's when you dig deep. You lift your head up and you say to yourself, time to get back into the game and pull off some bank heists and take as much of my friend's money as I possibly can. That's right. The smash hit mobile game Monopoly Go lets you compete with your friends to get the most riches and biggest empire. It's the Monopoly you love, but on your phone anytime with tons of new twists, including leaderboards to compare your progress to your buddies. And there's so much to do. You can play on countless dynamic Monopoly boards. Make your friends bankrupt by smashing their landmarks with a wrecking ball. Charge other players rent for your iconic properties. You can even work with your friends to crack open community chests and in tournaments to get extra rewards and climb the leaderboard. So get back out there, put on your game face, and download Monopoly Go, now free on the App Store or Google Play. Thanks for making Locked On Celtics your first listen every day. Go check out Locked On NBA. I'll be here for the Wednesday show on Locked On NBA with Jake Madison, talking about the first play-in tournament games. We'll get the West Coast, the Western Conference play-in tournament games. I'll look ahead to the Eastern Conference, all of that stuff tomorrow on Locked On NBA. So make sure you're subscribed there wherever you get your podcasts. You can watch the show on YouTube. Let's wrap up this mailbag with Andrew, who said, on the last day of the regular season, the Hawks were plus 17 on free throws, but lost by 42. How is that possible? They allowed 100 shots, and they allowed 65% shooting. So the Indiana Pacers shot 65% from the field. They only hit 3 more three-pointers, but they hit 65 baskets. So the Hawks were terrible defensively. They allowed a ton of, who allows 65% shooting? So plus 17 on free throws? Who cares? It's allowing 65% shooting and giving up 100 field goal attempts. Yikes. That's how you lose by a lot. Enzo says, does Neemias Queta's upgrade from a 2-way contract make Tillman expendable as a free agent this upcoming season? No, it doesn't, because Tillman, and I'm not saying it makes him he isn't expendable, but it's not because of the Queta deal. Tillman is a guy that can play big in a smaller lineup, or play next to a big in a bigger lineup and be a little bit of a switchable kind of guy there that I feel like he can help more than we've seen him help. So I feel like he could easily come back. I think he'd be a good guy to have come back. Give him a summer to kind of like work on his knee. I think his knee is a little bit of an issue. So, but I think it was a good pickup. I think Tillman is a good pickup, and it's a guy that should probably stick around. I mean, I'm a full advocate of running this whole thing back. So that would be. I know we got a question about, and I didn't include it, but bringing Luke Cornett back. I think the Celtics should bring Luke Cornett back. I don't think there are tons of upgrades out there. So maybe they, will be surprised, but, and I don't think everybody's going to come back, but it'll be, I think most of these guys can come back, and Tillman, I think, can be one of them. And I think he can be a very helpful guy. I don't think Queta getting that contract, maybe Queta is the replacement for Luke Cornett. It's entirely possible if that's the case, but I don't think he makes Tillman expendable per se. Hugo says, I saw rumors that Robert Williams is pushing to be traded back to Boston. I know that's highly unlikely, but it would even be possible given current budget and CBA stuff. Possible? Sure, possible. If two teams really want to make something happen, they can find a way, but it's a matter of what are you willing to give up. I answer this question to say, like, don't get your hopes up, and they shouldn't. I don't think they should bring Rob back at this point. He's gone. Things have worked, and honestly, to get him would be very difficult here. I'm going to look at his contract here. It's Robert Williams makes, why can't I see what Robert Williams makes here? Here we go. Rob is going to make 12.4 million. And it is going to be extraordinarily difficult because you basically have like 1-for-1 trades, but you can make a trade. The thing is, you can make a trade before the season, the official season ends. So there's like a small window for them to kind of avoid that rule. Bottom line is it is extraordinarily difficult, and so don't expect it. It's probably not going to happen, and it shouldn't happen. Joe asks, I was thinking about Jeff Van Gundy. I haven't heard anything about his contributions all season. Do you have any insider info? What he's done as a consultant for the team? Well, I know that he's basically he crosses different departments. So he's been in film sessions with Joe. He's talked to Joe Mazzulla. He's talked to Brad Stevens. You don't hear about it because it's a consultant, and he's here. He's not always here. Sometimes you see him, sometimes you don't. It's a mix of, front office, coaching. So you're not going to hear, hey, Jeff Van Gundy told me this. He's not going to be front facing. He's never done a media session with the Celtics. But hey, it's going to be worth, like I said, Brad Stevens going to be talking to the media in the morning. So I could throw him a Jeff Van Gundy question and be like, hey, what's Jeff been doing? What has he done all season? I see him sometimes. I've chatted a little bit with Jeff Van Gundy, but I'm curious to see how that's gone. But it's more just kind of being in on different meetings, being in on different sides, giving his opinion on certain things. And I think more like giving his opinion on some of the scouting that he's been able to do with, on the Team USA level. So that's the Jeff Van Gundy thing. I think Jeff is, it's an interesting hire. And I think by all accounts, from people that we've talked to, when you do ask about him, they're like, oh yeah, he's been great. What he's been great at, who knows? And finally, Michael says, in the event that the Celtics, knock on wood, win the championship, would you be on a duck boat in the parade? As fans, the media is part of the experience, and would really be great to see, maybe all of us on a duck boat would be a really great celebration. Just wondering how that works and if it's a possibility. I am wondering that same thing there, Michael. I think I remember the Patriots gave the media a duck boat, beat writers and such. I don't remember 2008 if that was the case. I think just from a coverage perspective, it would be great for me to experience, because I'm going to be giving you what the parade experience, right? So what better way for me to tell you what a parade is like than to go on the parade and look and experience it and feel it. Also, it would be super cool to be on a duck boat going down Tremont Street and all of that. And if I see people and people like say like locked on, like that would be amazing to me. That would be amazing if Locked On Celtics fans were there. And oh my God, that would be a dream come true. I don't know what the situation is. I have to cover the parade somehow, assuming that there's going to be a parade. But I don't know if we're going to be in the parade at all, if we're going to have our own, if they're going to allow us to be kind of like watching with like, hey, you get to be with Neemias Queta. John, you get to be with Queta. The Boston Globe, you get to be with Jayson Tatum and Jaylen Brown. I don't know. Maybe we get to be, maybe that's how it goes. Whatever it is, if there is the possibility of being on a duck boat and experiencing a parade like that, I would relish that for the rest of my life, because, regardless, it'd be the coolest thing. And I can't wait. Imagine being able to write about that experience. And I would be recording a ton of stuff. I would give you a bonus podcast from the boat. I would probably go live on YouTube from the boat. So that would be just an absolute, just knock it out of the park, great content thing. And at the same time, I would certainly take like a few minutes to just stand there and look at that sea of people and be like, damn, what a cool experience this is. So I hope I get to do it. If I don't, I don't. But if I do, I certainly will make the most of it. And you will certainly get to see and hear what it's like. I will share for you a lot of it here. So root for it. Thanks for listening. Oh, by the way, if you want to submit questions, there's only one way to do it. It's johnkaralis.com/mailbag. johnkaralis.com/mailbag. I'll still be doing them throughout the playoffs. So get your questions in. I will probably get to, it depends. I don't know how many I'll get to, but I'll try to get to them as best I can. So submit your questions. Those of you who have, I appreciate it. Those of you who are listening, who have subscribed, thank you so much. If you're not a subscriber, get there, subscribe, get onto the YouTube page, subscribe, and get into the comment section. And if you have done all that stuff, then I'd love it if you shared the podcast, tell the world that they should be listening to and watching the Locked On Celtics podcast. It's here in the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.